Hello, I'd like to talk to you today about companies. Now, the law relating to companies is quite complex. In fact, some lawyers practice in it almost exclusively. Accordingly, all I'm going to be able to give you today is a very basic snapshot. Companies have been around for a long time, but they've been becoming increasingly popular in recent years, no doubt fueled by the fact that you can set one up quite quickly and easily and cheaply, often using an online legal services provider. Now, a company is its own separate legal entity. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, a company is like a person. It can own assets directly, it can sue and be sued in its own name. It is in effect a legal thing. So it differs a bit from a trust, which that cannot be said of. Now, the shareholders of a company own the company, but they don't directly own its assets. The shares of a company are a separate class of assets in their own right. And as a shareholder, what you own is the share itself, not a portion of the assets of the company. In that regard, it differs from a trust. The beneficiaries of a trust do own a proportionate share of the trust's assets. Now, companies are governed by a document called the Constitution. Now, the Constitution used to be called a Memorandum and Articles of Association, and you still occasionally see that term in older companies. Now, the Constitution basically is the document that governs how a company operates, and it deals with such things as how to conduct meetings, namely shareholder meetings or general meetings, directors' meetings, and also deals with transmission of shares, how you sell shares to other parties, rights of preemption and things of that nature. Companies are governed by its directors. And when I say directors plural, of course, nowadays a company can have just one director. Now, directors owe the company what is called a fiduciary duty. Now, fiduciary duty is a very complex concept, but basically what it means is a company director is obliged to prefer the interests of the company to their own interests. A lot of directors don't understand that, and it causes a lot of litigation. I may actually talk about that in a subsequent seminar. Now, why are companies popular? Well, asset protection. Companies, being a separate legal entity, own things separately to you. You might own shares in the company, you might be a director of the company, but it's the company that owns the assets. Accordingly, if you have any difficulties regarding bankruptcy or other solvency issues, the assets can still be held by the company itself and they're not held by you. The other good thing about a company is that it has a low tax rate. It's usually significantly lower than the top marginal tax rate, and as a result, a company can hold income that has been taxed at a low tax rate until such time as it can be successfully paid out as dividends at a favourable tax rate. Most people include a company in their business structure for this purpose, and you might see it referred to as a bucket company. Now, companies do have some problems, and they are a little bit inflexible compared to trusts. One particular problem that I'll mention at this point, and I see it time and time again, is what I refer to as the 50-50 company. You might get a situation where two people set up a business and they each own 50% of the shares in a company, and they might both be directors. So you've got two directors and you've got two shareholders each owning 50%. It's great when it works. When they fall out, it causes big problems, and a lot of lawyers make a lot of money out of dealing with those situations. There's ways to get around that, and most particularly what I would recommend is that the shareholders enter into what's called a shareholders agreement. I don't have time to talk about that today, but I will do another seminar on that.